The Aurora glided quietly through space, leaving behind the battlefield that had tested humanity's courage and resolve. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, serene and cold, yet somehow alive with possibility. On the flagship, life returned to a measured rhythm. Medics tended to the wounded, engineers repaired the hulls, and officers reviewed the battle logs with a mix of pride and relief. But among all the activity, one figure remained at the center of attention: Commander Elias Rourke. He had survived the impossible, endured the void of space alone, and now finally he was home. The experience had left him fragile in body, yet stronger in spirit. Every movement was careful, but his eyes shone with the knowledge that humanity had kept its promise. Admiral Cortez stood beside him, watching as Elias slowly walked the length of the deck. "You've made it," she said softly, "and the fleet is stronger because of your survival." Elias paused, glancing around at the ships and the crew, every face reflecting determination, relief, and pride. "I don't feel stronger," he admitted. "I feel amazed. You all risked everything for me. I thought I was alone out there, but I wasn't. I had humanity with me." Cortez smiled. "That is what makes us different. We do not leave our own behind. Not one, not ever. It is what defines us." Word of the rescue spread quickly through the galaxy. Allies of humanity celebrated the daring mission, while the alien coalition quietly reevaluated their understanding of human resolve. Reports and holographic transmissions showed the unbroken fleet, battered but victorious, carrying Elias safely through the void. On distant worlds, news agencies replayed the story repeatedly. A human soldier abandoned, drifting in the void, rescued by the unwavering loyalty of his people. The message was clear. Humanity fought not only with strength and weapons, but with courage, loyalty, and a bond that no enemy could sever. Even among the aliens, discussions changed. The silver-skinned observer watched the recordings with silent admiration. "They are unlike any species I have seen," he said quietly. "They risk all for one life. That is strength beyond measure." The scaled commander frowned. "Illogical, one life. Yet they succeed. How can we measure such power?" "Perhaps it is not measured in numbers," the observer replied. "Perhaps it is measured in heart." Back aboard the Aurora, Elias recovered slowly. He spent time in the medical bay, regaining strength, yet his mind remained active. He replayed every moment of his ordeal, every calculation, every decision, and every memory of floating in the endless darkness of space. One night, alone in the observation deck, he stared at the stars. They were unchanged, vast and indifferent, yet they seemed to carry a subtle warmth. He thought of his family, his sister watching the night sky, and of the countless humans who had risked themselves to bring him home. "They trusted me," he whispered to himself. "They believed in me, and because of that I survived. Because of them, I live." He realized then that survival alone was not the greatest gift. What mattered was the truth that humans valued each other beyond all logic, beyond all reason. That bond was a force stronger than any weapon, stronger than fear, stronger than space itself. The fleet continued its journey back toward Earth, but the mission's impact extended far beyond their immediate victory. Across the galaxy, stories of humanity's loyalty spread. Some aliens began to see humans not as fragile newcomers, but as a species shaped by unbreakable bonds and fearless determination. Even enemies could not ignore the lesson. Humans were unpredictable, courageous, and devoted to their own. On many distant worlds, alien scholars and strategists debated the meaning of the rescue. "Why do they value one life so much?" they asked. "It defies logic. It defies strategy." "Perhaps that is why they are strong," another replied. "It is not weapons, not numbers, but something we cannot understand. They call it humanity." For Elias, the days aboard the Aurora were both quiet and intense. He shared his experiences with the fleet, helping engineers understand how he survived, guiding medics on treating long-term effects of isolation, and reminding the crew why their mission had succeeded. He often met with Lieutenant Aria Vance, the officer who had been first at his side during the rescue. Together they reviewed the battle logs and rescue data. "You know," Elias said one evening, "I never expected anyone to find me. I thought it was the end. I was ready to accept it, and yet you didn't," Vance replied. "You never gave up even when everything was against you." I learned that from all of you, Elias said quietly. From humanity. You taught me that even one life matters, that even in the darkest void hope can survive. On the bridge of the Aurora, Admiral Cortez watched her fleet. Ships hummed with energy, systems repaired and weapons tested. Ready to return to Earth or continue defending the galaxy if necessary, she thought about the story that had unfolded. The pilot abandoned, the fleet risking everything, the rescue against impossible odds. This will change how the galaxy sees us, she said softly to Commander Hale. They will no longer call us reckless. They will respect humans for what we are capable of, our courage, our loyalty, and our heart. Hale nodded. They will remember this story for centuries, not because of the battle itself, but because of what it represents. Humanity does not abandon its own. Cortez looked out at the stars, a faint smile crossing her face. And now they know. When the fleet finally returned to Earth, the welcome was overwhelming. Citizens cheered from cities, spaceports were filled with banners and lights, and every news channel broadcasted the story of Commander Elias Rourke and the fleet that refused to abandon him. Elias stepped onto solid ground, inhaling deeply, feeling the gravity of his home planet in a way he had longed for while floating in space. He saw his family waiting, his mother's teary eyes, his father's proud smile, and his sister waving with joy. He ran toward them, embracing each one with gratitude and love. I made it, he said softly, because humanity never forgets its own. In the following weeks, the story of the rescue became a legend. Across the galaxy, human fleets were no longer measured only by their firepower or technology. They were measured by their spirit, their loyalty, and their courage. Allies trusted them more, and enemies regarded them with caution. Elias was invited to speak at gatherings of allied species. He told the story, not as a tale of survival alone, but as a testament to the human spirit. He spoke of trust, hope, and unity, of the bonds that held humanity together even when all seemed lost. Listeners, human and alien alike, were moved. Many whispered to one another, "This is why humans endure. This is why humans are special." Years later, Elias returned to the stars, not as a stranded soldier, but as a symbol. He trained new pilots, advised fleets, and shared lessons learned from his ordeal. He would tell every crew, every cadet, and every officer one simple truth. When the darkness comes, when the odds are against you, remember this: humanity will come for you. One life matters, hope matters, loyalty matters. That is what makes us who we are. And across the galaxy, the legacy of that single rescue endured. Aliens spoke of it in council halls. Strategists studied it, and humans themselves remembered it with pride. One pilot, abandoned and alone, had become the reason a species and the galaxy recognized the heart of humanity. For Elias Rourke, it was simple. Humanity never leaves its own. And because of that, the stars themselves seemed just a little warmer, just a little brighter, as if even the universe recognized the enduring truth of what it meant to be human. The galaxy was old. Stars had burned for millions of years, and civilizations had risen and fallen countless times. Yet through all of history, one shadow remained longer than most: the Kishar Dominion. The Kishar were not the strongest in size, nor the most advanced in knowledge, but they were masters of control through fear. Their fleets were vast, their soldiers disciplined, and their cruelty unmatched. Wherever they expanded, worlds bent the knee, not because they could not fight, but because they believed resistance was useless. The Dominion's very name was a curse whispered in dark corners of alien taverns. To the galaxy, terror was defined by the Kishar. On peaceful planets, children were told stories of the Dominion, not as bedtime tales, but as warnings. Behave, or the Kishar will come. Scholars recorded endless accounts of the Dominion's rise, noting how planet after planet fell without much struggle. Some resisted, yes, but all resistance ended the same way: burned cities, broken fleets, and silence. The Dominion thrived on this silence. For them, victory was not just in winning wars, but in convincing others that no war should even begin. Across the stars, the galaxy accepted a cruel truth: nothing could stand against them. But in their vast archives, among thousands of reports about alien species, one race appeared only briefly, almost forgotten. A single entry described a blue and green planet tucked away in a spiral arm, far from the Dominion's main borders. The file noted primitive technology, recent space travel, and no threat. The race was called humans. The Kashar barely gave them attention. After all, many such young species dotted the galaxy. Some never left their homeworlds. Others reached the stars only to vanish under the Dominion's pressure. Why would this tiny race be any different? And yet, the first whispers began on a border world named Klyros 4. A Dominion patrol ship had intercepted a strange vessel near its orbit. The alien design was unfamiliar. The crew expected frightened ambassadors begging for mercy. Instead, they reported something odd. The beings called themselves humans, and though their ship was far weaker than Dominion craft, they spoke with calm determination. The report was filed away, almost ignored. But for the few who read it, something about the description felt unusual. Among alien species enslaved by the Dominion, the name meant nothing. On mining colonies in the great prison worlds, no one had heard of humans. Instead, the people continued their lives under the long shadow of the Kashar. A farmer on Trelna Prime tilled the soil with heavy arms, remembering when his ancestors had ruled their own skies. He told his children stories of the old days before the Dominion arrived. His son asked if anyone would ever rise against them. The farmer only sighed. A miner on Ruthos 4 coughed dust and dreamed of freedom, yet dared not speak of it. The Dominion controlled even whispers. To speak of rebellion was to invite death. And in the great academies of the Vathor scholars, ancient texts were studied, all pointing to the same conclusion. Fear of the Kashar was logical, necessary, and eternal. No one believed in hope. The Dominion ensured this. They ruled through horror as much as through ships and weapons. On conquered planets, they would execute a handful publicly, then leave the rest alive, broken by fear. The message was simple. You could be next. It was said that the Kishar did not merely conquer bodies, they conquered spirits. And so, when officials reviewed the first minor reports about humans, no one thought twice. Another small species. Another future subject. Another record for the archives. But the galaxy had not seen the full story yet. Humanity had grown in silence, far from the Dominion's gaze. Their history was filled with wars, disasters, and challenges unending. Unlike many races, humans did not grow soft in peace. They had known hunger, storms, plagues, and fire since the beginning of their time, and every trial had shaped them into something unexpected. Not the most powerful, not the most advanced, but the most resilient. Where other species broke under pressure, humans adapted. Where others surrendered to despair, humans clung to hope. Where others waited for saviors, humans became their own. This truth was hidden from the Dominion, locked away in the forgotten corners of Earth's history. But soon, very soon, the galaxy would learn. Far across Dominion space, the whispers began again. A strange transmission passed from one smuggler to another, carried in secret channels, shared in hushed tones. A new race has appeared. They do not kneel. They do not beg. They fight. No one believed it at first. A tiny backwater race daring to resist? Impossible. And yet among the enslaved, among those who had long lost hope, the story spread like fire. Perhaps it was only a rumor, perhaps only a tale, but it was enough to make a spark. Because for centuries the galaxy had thought it understood terror. The Kashar had taught them well, but something new was coming, something even the Dominion did not yet see, something human. As the first reports reached the Dominion capital, a high commander scoffed. What are humans? Nothing but insects. They will learn fear as all others do. He dismissed the matter, believing the story would end as it always did, with silence, with another species erased, with the galaxy's fear unbroken. But fear, once thought unshakable, was about to shift, for the galaxy was mistaken. They thought they knew terror. They were wrong, because true terror was not the Dominion's cruelty. True terror was the sight of a race that refused to break, and that terror was on its way. The Kashar Dominion was used to obedience. Across thousands of light years, their fleets traveled wherever they wished. They had faced countless alien races before. Some had ships, some had armies, but all had fallen. So when a Dominion patrol intercepted a strange vessel near the edge of their border, no one expected anything unusual. The ship was small, far weaker than Dominion warships, and carried markings they had never seen before. It was the first recorded meeting between the Kashar and humanity. The commander of the patrol, Vornak, studied the image of the vessel with mild amusement. Primitive, he muttered. Their design is clumsy. Their engines are weak. This will be simple, his crew laughed. To them, this was nothing more than a routine capture. Another new species would soon kneel, and the galaxy would not even notice. Vornak sent a standard message. Unknown vessel, you are in Dominion territory. Power down your engines. Prepare for boarding. For a moment there was silence. Then the human ship answered. The voice was steady, calm, and without fear. This is the human exploration ship Dauntless. We are peaceful travelers. But we will not submit. The bridge of the Dominion patrol fell silent. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. No one had ever answered like that before. Most species either begged for mercy or tried to flee. These beings did neither. Vornak leaned forward. Repeat that message, he ordered. The humans did. Word for word. Calm, firm, unshaken. Something about the tone unsettled him. The Dominion ship activated its weapons and closed in. But before the boarding pods could launch, the human vessel fired first. Its weapons were weaker, its aim imperfect, but the act itself was shocking. The Dauntless fought back. Inside the human ship, Captain Elena Rourke gripped her chair. She knew their odds were terrible. The Dominion ship outclassed them in every way, but retreat was not in her blood. Keep firing, she shouted. Hit their sensors! Blind them if you can. Her crew obeyed. The ship shook under enemy fire. Sparks flew from consoles, but still they resisted. On the Dominion bridge, Vornak felt the first hint of frustration. This was supposed to be easy. Yet the humans did not run, did not surrender. Instead, they fought with a kind of desperation he had rarely seen. Crush them, he roared. Show them what happens to defiance. But as the battle dragged on, something became clear. The humans could not win, but they refused to stop. Every shot they fired was clever, aimed at weak points using tactics the Dominion had not expected from such a young race. One of Vornak's officers whispered, almost nervously, Commander. They are smiling. What? Vornak snapped. Look at the visual feed. And there it was. On the screen showing the human bridge, faces battered and sweaty, consoles burning around them, yet the humans smiled. Not the smile of victory, but the smile of defiance. Vornak felt a chill. Hours later, the Dauntless was destroyed. Its wreckage floated among the stars, its crew scattered. By all measures, it was a Dominion victory, but the crew of the patrol did not cheer. Instead, they whispered among themselves. They did not surrender. They kept fighting even when they had no chance. They smiled as they died. It was a victory, yes, but it did not feel like one. The survivors' reports spread through Dominion channels. Many dismissed them as exaggerations. Humans, one high official scoffed. Nothing but primitives, a minor nuisance. But among the soldiers who had been there, the story took root. They had faced many enemies before, but never one like this. These humans were different. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, word began to slip out. Smugglers carried fragments of the tale. Prisoners whispered it through the bars. On slave worlds, quiet rumors spread. There is a new race. They fought the Dominion. They did not bow. The enslaved races, long broken by fear, felt a strange stirring in their hearts. Could it be true? Could there really be a people who resisted? Back on Earth, news of the encounter reached humanity's leaders. Captain Rourke and her crew were mourned as heroes, their sacrifice honored. Yet more than grief filled the air. There was determination. The Dominion had revealed itself, and humanity now knew the galaxy was dangerous. But fear did not rule them. Instead, they prepared. Ships were built, fleets trained, alliances considered. For humanity had learned one lesson throughout its history. When threatened, they did not cower. They grew stronger. On the Dominion's capital world, a council of high commanders met. The reports of the human encounter were placed on the table. Some laughed, calling it a trivial matter, but others frowned. These humans fought until their last breath, one commander said. They did not fear us. That is dangerous. Vornak, the patrol commander, spoke with unease. I have seen many enemies. None behaved like them. They were not afraid. Even in defeat, they were not broken. The council dismissed him, unwilling to believe. But deep inside, a seed of doubt began to grow. In the far reaches of space, a quiet voice whispered among the stars. The humans are coming. They do not kneel. They do not fear. The galaxy, still trapped under the shadow of the Dominion, did not yet understand what this meant. But the first crack had appeared in the wall of terror. The Dominion thought they had won. But in truth, they had awakened something far more dangerous than they imagined. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had seen a species that refused to bow, and though only one small ship had stood against them, the impact was far greater. For hope had a way of spreading, and fear, true fear, had only just begun. The Kashar believed they knew terror, but as they looked into the unbroken eyes of humanity, they realized a truth they did not wish to face. Terror was changing. The wreckage of the human ship Dauntless drifted silently in space, but its story did not die. The Dominion thought the encounter was finished, a small matter in their endless campaigns. Yet in quiet corners of the galaxy, the tale began to move like fire through dry grass. It started with the soldiers of the Dominion patrol. They had destroyed the humans, yes, but none of them could forget the way the strange beings had fought. They had seen the faces of the crew as their ship broke apart, and those faces did not show fear. They showed defiance and something far more dangerous: hope. One soldier, unable to sleep, told the story in a tavern on a border world. A smuggler overheard, carried it along a trade route, and whispered it to others. Soon the story reached mining colonies, prison camps, and hidden rebel cells. There is a race that fights the Dominion. They do not bow. They do not surrender. The name was spoken softly at first: humans. On Ruthos IV, in the deep mines where enslaved workers dug endlessly for ore, the whispers spread quickly. Miners sat in darkness, listening to the tale passed from mouth to mouth. Humans? One asked, disbelief heavy in his voice. Another story to make us forget our chains? But the old miner beside him shook his head. No, this is different. I heard it from a trader who swore on his life. These humans fought until the end. They smiled even as the Dominion crushed them. The younger miner fell silent. For the first time in years, he felt something he thought was long dead: courage. On Trelna Prime, farmers working under Dominion guards repeated the tale in hushed tones while tending their fields. An elder gathered children at night and told them, "There are beings out there who will not kneel. Remember their name, humans. One day they may be the spark we need." The children's eyes widened. In their hearts a seed of hope was planted, even among the free races not yet conquered by the Dominion but living in constant fear. The story reached. In the academies of the Vathar scholars, young minds studied the psychology of terror, convinced the Dominion's rule was unshakable. But when whispers of humanity arrived, debates broke out. If true, one scholar argued, this changes everything. A race that does not fear the Dominion is a danger to the Dominion itself. Others dismissed it as rumor, yet none could deny the strange feeling the tale gave them. It was like a door opening in their imagination. If humans could resist, perhaps others could as well. Meanwhile, in the heart of the Dominion, the High Council continued to scoff. Reports about humans were filed, ignored, and forgotten by most. But among lower-ranking officers and common soldiers, the whispers grew stronger. "They are reckless," said one soldier. "They are fools," replied another. "Yes," the first admitted, "but fools who refuse to break. That is worse than enemies who are strong." Vornak, the commander who had destroyed the Dauntless, felt uneasy. He remembered the sight of humans smiling in the face of destruction. No amount of victories in his long career had left him feeling so unsettled. To him, it was not weakness. It was something the Dominion had never faced before, a species unafraid of fear itself. On Earth, humanity received the news of their first contact with the Dominion with mixed emotions. The loss of the Dauntless hurt deeply. Families mourned, leaders gave speeches, and the crew was honored as pioneers and heroes. But alongside grief came resolve. Humanity now knew they were not alone in the galaxy, and they also knew that among the stars there were monsters, yet fear did not win. Humanity had faced worse in its own history: wars, disasters, hunger, and fire. Every time they had risen again. The Dominion was powerful, but humans were used to impossible challenges. In secret, world leaders began meeting. Plans were drawn for stronger ships. Resources were pooled to build fleets. Military officers studied the battle logs from the Dauntless and searched for weaknesses in the Dominion's tactics. Scientists rushed to improve engines and weapons. Most importantly, humanity remembered the lesson their fallen explorers had given them: never surrender. Far away, the Dominion's spies began gathering information about Earth. What they discovered unsettled them. Human history was filled with conflict. Unlike many species, humans had not known long stretches of peace. Instead, they had endured endless cycles of struggle, wars between nations, battles against nature, plagues, storms, and disasters. Yet through all this, they had survived, adapted, and grown stronger. The Dominion archivists were disturbed. "They live in chaos," one muttered. "Their history is full of terror, and yet they thrive in it," another whispered. "Perhaps that is why they do not fear us. Terror is not new to them. Terror is home." The whispers grew louder across the galaxy. In the hidden camps of rebels, in the dark cells of prisoners, in the secret hearts of scholars, everyone began to repeat the name, humans. For the first time in generations, enslaved species began to dream of freedom. For the first time, the idea that the Dominion could be resisted seemed possible, but the Dominion was not blind. High Commander Zirek, one of the most ruthless leaders of the Council, called an emergency meeting. "These whispers must be crushed," he declared. "Hope is a disease and humans are the carriers. We will end them before their infection spreads." Plans were drawn. Fleets would be sent toward the small blue planet called Earth. It would be destroyed before its people could grow stronger. The Dominion believed this was the end of the matter, but they did not understand what they had unleashed. For every story told of humans refusing to kneel, the fire of rebellion grew hotter. And even if Earth burned, the idea of humanity could not be erased. In a prison mine on Ruthos 4, the old miner who had once whispered of humans now spoke louder. "You see," he said to the workers around him, "the Dominion fears them. Why else would they plan such haste? They fear the spirit of humans because they cannot break it. And if humans cannot be broken, perhaps neither can we." His words spread like sparks, igniting courage in hearts long chained. On Trelna Prime, the elder who told children of humans now looked to the stars with hope. "Maybe one day," he said, "we will see their ships not as stories but as allies." And the children believed. The galaxy had lived under the shadow of the Dominion for centuries. Fear was the air they breathed, the chain that bound them. But with the arrival of whispers about Earth, that chain began to crack. Hope had returned, and in the hearts of the Kishar Dominion for the first time, a quiet fear began to grow. Not fear of rebellion, not fear of armies, but fear of a species that could not be taught terror. They thought they knew terror, but the humans were teaching them otherwise. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. For centuries, the Kishar Dominion had ruled through terror, their fleets moving like dark clouds over helpless worlds. Every species had learned to bow, to obey, and to survive in silence. But humanity had changed everything. The story of the humans' defiance, their first clash at the edge of Dominion space, had spread across the stars. It had reached enslaved planets, mining colonies, and secret rebel cells. In every whisper, hope had been planted, and the Dominion could feel it, like a shadow creeping across the edges of their perfect control. High Commander Zirek, one of the most feared leaders in Dominion history, did not intend to leave the matter unchecked. "The humans must be crushed before they inspire rebellion," he declared. "Their planet, their fleets, everything, eradicated." For the Kishar, the war was simple. Their strategy had always been to strike with overwhelming force, to destroy hope before it could grow. And yet, they were about to discover that humans did not fight like any other species. On Earth, the first alerts reached military leaders in orbit and on the surface. Scouts had detected the incoming Dominion fleet. It was massive, more than Earth's current defense fleet could handle, and fully prepared for invasion. Captain Elena Rourke, though still grieving the loss of the Dauntless, took command of a newly built squadron of human ships. Her crew had trained tirelessly for this moment. They knew the odds were against them, but fear was never part of their plan. "Our mission," Rourke said to her officers, "is not to surrender, not to run, and not to die quietly. We will strike, we will fight, and we will show the Dominion that humanity cannot be broken." The first skirmishes occurred in the shadows of Dominion space. Human ships used the darkness of asteroid fields and gas clouds to conceal their movements. They did not meet the enemy fleet head-on, where firepower favored the Kishar. Instead, they ambushed supply lines, disabled critical communication satellites, and created chaos where the Dominion expected none. For the first time, the Kishar realized that humans fought not with brute strength alone, but with intelligence, creativity, and sheer unpredictability. In one daring strike, a small squad of human vessels infiltrated a Dominion supply station. With precision and speed, they disabled the fuel reserves, leaving an entire fleet stranded in orbit. The Dominion soldiers panicked. They had never been attacked like this before, not by a small race, not by anyone. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, enslaved species watched and learned. In the mines of Ruthos IV, in the farms of Trelna Prime, and in the hidden cities of rebels, stories of human victories spread. Every victory, no matter how small, inspired hope. If humans can fight the Dominion, perhaps we can too. Rebellion began to ripple outward. Slaves sabotaged machines, miners destroyed equipment, and spies sent information to human fleets. Humanity had become a symbol, a spark, and the Dominion's control began to crack. On board a massive Dominion battleship, Commander Vornak, veteran of countless wars, realized something terrifying. Humans were not only clever, they were fearless. Even when trapped, outgunned, or surrounded, they refused to give in. They had no fear of death, no fear of pain, no fear of the Dominion. "This is impossible," Vornak muttered. "They are not like anything we have faced. They cannot be broken." The Dominion Council, reading reports from every sector, began to panic. Zirak himself realized that brute force alone could not win this war. Humanity had more than courage. They had coordination, unity, and adaptability. Ships communicated across vast distances using encrypted channels, sharing strategies and intelligence instantly. Fleets learned from each encounter, adapting in ways the Kashar had never imagined. When the Dominion tried to cut off Earth's fleet, humans responded by creating decoy convoys, scattering small ships in unpredictable formations, and striking at weak points in the enemy lines. Entire fleets vanished in ambushes, leaving Dominion commanders in shock. In orbit around a Dominion-held planet, a group of human pilots executed one of the most daring maneuvers ever recorded. With limited resources, they lured a Dominion cruiser into a dense asteroid field. Using the environment to their advantage, they disabled the cruiser's engines and weapons. Then, instead of finishing the ship immediately, they left it as a warning. "We can strike anywhere, and we will not be defeated." News of these actions spread quickly. Even soldiers loyal to the Dominion began to whisper among themselves, "If humans can do this, what else can they do?" The Kashar tried to respond with sheer numbers. Entire fleets were deployed, warships bristling with weapons, hundreds of thousands of soldiers ready to crush humanity in one strike. But the humans did not fight conventionally. They hit the Dominion where it was weakest: communication lines, supply routes, and weakly defended stations. The Dominion had trained its soldiers to fear nothing in the galaxy. But fear is not just about power. It is about the unexpected, and humans were entirely unpredictable. Even on Earth, human citizens contributed to the war effort. Scientists developed faster engines, improved weapons, and new defense systems. Engineers repaired ships in record time. Civilians volunteered to manage logistics, communications, and intelligence. Humanity fought not only in space but on every level, every mind, every hand contributing to the resistance. For the Kashar, it was a nightmare. A single species, still small compared to the galaxy's other powers, had turned their own strengths against them. The War of Shadows continued for months. Human fleets moved like ghosts, striking at night, vanishing by day. Dominion ships were crippled, entire fleets stranded, and soldiers captured by humans were treated with surprising mercy. Not cruelty, as the Kashar expected. This was also a psychological weapon. The Dominion had used fear for centuries. They had believed terror was the ultimate control. Now they realized that humanity fought with hope, resilience, and mercy, making them even more frightening than the most brutal conquerors. On a planet under Dominion occupation, an enslaved people watched the human strikes from hidden cameras. They saw humans risking their lives to protect others, striking at impossible odds and refusing to give in. For the first time, they believed they could fight. "Perhaps the Dominion is not invincible," one slave whispered to another. "Perhaps freedom is possible." In the heart of the Dominion Council, Zirak sat in silence, staring at the reports. "We have underestimated them," he admitted for the first time. "Humanity is unlike any species we have faced. They do not fear us. They do not break, and now, others are following them." A veteran officer added, "Commander, if we do not end this soon, the galaxy may rise against us. The humans have become more than a fleet, they are a symbol. Zirak clenched his fists. He had always been confident, always certain. But now the certainty was gone. Back in space, Captain Rourke led her squadron on another mission. Their ships glided silently among the stars, striking at Dominion forces with precision and strategy. Every pilot, every crew member knew the stakes. Every attack mattered, and every victory, no matter how small, sent a message across the galaxy. Humans will not be broken. The Dominion's fleets had thought they ruled through fear. But humanity had taught them a new lesson. True terror comes from hope that cannot be crushed, from courage that cannot be defeated, and from a spirit that refuses to bow. As the War of Shadows raged on, whispers of humanity's courage continued to spread. Slaves sabotaged machines, rebels attacked Dominion outposts, and even neutral worlds began to secretly aid human forces. The galaxy was awakening, and the Dominion realized they were losing more than battles. They were losing control over fear itself. The Kashar had always thought they knew terror, but the humans had redefined it. And now, the Dominion faced a foe unlike any they had ever encountered, one that fought not just with weapons, but with the unbreakable spirit of an entire species.